Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cognitus Podcast Series. I am your host, Harsh Mishra, and it is my privilege to introduce you to the people to know at Cognitus. Welcome to all, and today I'm joined by Jeff Olsen, partner here at Cognitus and in charge of the digital supply chain practice. So, hello, Jeff, and welcome to the podcast series.
Thanks, Harsh.
Jeff, the first thing our audience here wants to know is about Jeff Olsen, a little bit about you and your journey in the SAP world and how you chose digital supply chain as your area of focus. So, to you, Jeff.
Yeah, so I started in SAP back in 2010. That was my first job out of college, actually. I was on the business side or customer side where I was put in charge of, it was actually an insurance company. I was hired to do more finance than anything. So it took a couple interesting turns along my SAP career, but I was drawn to like plant maintenance back then because as an insurance company, sounds kind of goofy, but we were in charge of the entire fleet of vehicles at this insurance company for the executives and management level folks. So I built the plant maintenance system there, integrated that with some of the leasing agencies and things. So that was kind of where I got my feet wet within SAP on the supply chain side. And shortly thereafter, I joined another business, customer facing in Plymouth, Michigan, doing more totally manufacturing. So I really wanted to get to the basis of SAP and the foundation of SAP. So I decided to take the manufacturing route, which looking back on that was a great opportunity. I got to travel the world with that company, do a bunch of implementations, global implementations, which teaches you a lot fast. I was definitely drinking out of a fire hose, but that was great experience. And then shortly thereafter, I met somebody from Cognitus and joined them full-time back in 2017, I think that was, after a few years, 2018, after a few years working with Cognitus. It doesn't end with Cognitus. Certainly, that's where the whole digital supply chain concept really came to fruition. And I started that practice at Cognitus. It was definitely more finance focused and pricing around those areas. So I came in to do the supply chain piece, and it's been a great journey thus far. A lot more to do, a lot of growth as of recent. So, with IBP, WM, some of the success stories that I'm sure we'll talk about today. So that's been a exciting journey thus far.
Oh, that's fantastic, Jeff. I mean, the whole breadth of SAP knowledge is important, right? To really get value of digital supply chain as well. And certainly starting out in finance and then going into plant maintenance and finally making it through digital supply chain and IBP seems like a great experience. So just wanted to get your perspective on Cognitus, offerings and as an organization and how customers working with you gain value out of engagements with you at Cognitus.
Yeah, so, one thing that's really interesting with Cognitus is that most of us, especially on the supply chain side and a lot on the S4 side, we started with the customer, right? We started inside those businesses. So we have kind of an interesting perspective from, I was part of a decision-making team with some of my previous employers. So that gave me the kind of inside scoop, if you will, to understand how that process works inside the companies, what they look for in consulting companies, what they look for along their journey, right? So kind of at Cognitus, we always use the term white glove, I suppose, but really what that means to me is that we think about the customer journey, right? There's a lot of time investment, monetary investment that goes into an ERP transformation, going to the intelligent enterprise. So we're very industry focused. We walk that journey with the customer hand in hand, right? It's not only their journey, their commitment, it's also ours. We take that very seriously. That's a big differentiator of ours. We also, with all the different tiers and different practices that you'll see within Cognitus, a large breadth of experience across, I mentioned pricing and S4HANA before. Those are obviously key pillars of ours, but with the digital supply chain, with the business network, all these other areas that we have the full industry experience and the full end-to-end solution set and understanding of the customer journey, right? So it doesn't only start with the investment, it also ends with telling the story and using all of that experience in the different pillars of our organization to deliver a successful implementation.
Well, Jeff, talking about successful implementation, I know you have a couple of great successes recently, and it'd be fantastic if you shared with our audience some of the key initiatives that you've been involved with lately and how it created value for the customers.
Yeah, so the one that comes to mind right away where we really did, like I mentioned before, that end-to-end journey, bringing that intelligent enterprise to fruition was Shutterfly out of Redwood City, California. We did stand up 8 plants for them across the U.S., and then there's some foreign entities there as well, but more from a financial perspective with a recent acquisition in Spoonflower in one of their manufacturing facilities in Germany. But what we did there, we started with S4, but we brought in IBP, EWM, Ariba SEC, and also Ariba P2P. So from a supply chain standpoint, that's more where I'll focus, integrating their internal OMS system or order management system with their internal MES or manufacturing execution systems into S4. They weren't quite ready to replace everything, but they definitely are a company very forward thinking, very fun to work with in that way because you can bring a lot of that technology forward and they're very technology driven. So using IBP and integrating that forecast collaboration with Ariba, bringing those finished goods from their internal systems into S4, then using segmentation to reduce the number of SKUs, variant configuration. The list goes on. There was a lot of things that we did there that we could have multiple day discussion over, honestly. But that was a really great success story because we tied so many components of SAP together. So when you look at, the intelligent enterprise, as SAP always calls it, RISE, that sort of thing, we were able to take a consumer-based or retail-based company, high tech, they do touch a lot of different industries, but to take all those solutions that you see in all the RISE demonstrations or documents and really bring that to fruition with Shutterfly. So that was really a great experience there.
No, Jeff, that definitely sounds like an exciting implementation you did there. So, similarly, could you highlight some of those things that customers should consider when they're trying to implement an end-to-end digital supply chain, and how you do the readiness check for them, how you do the hand-holding from beginning to end, helping them make that decision and then implement that solution. So what should customers be thinking about first? And when they contact you, what's the first things that you do to ensure that they get benefits from their investment in SAP and its surround systems, like you said, IVP, EWM, and others, right?
There's definitely a lot of things to consider in your journey. Some customers are on ECC already, going to S4. Some are doing a brand implementation where they run maybe just an Excel sheet or an old ERP that they built in-house or something that's, no longer maintained. So there's a lot of different factors there. But, a large piece of advice, whether you're coming from a legacy system, whether it be ECC or, like I mentioned, some of those third parties, try to think about and this is a great example of Shutterfly, try to think about bringing it's a lot of change management. It may sound like a lot, but really bring all of the solution set up front. And what I mean is if you're thinking about IBP, for example, I would urge you to really, really consider and challenge your business stakeholders to bring that in the beginning. There's a lot of projects we see where it's like, let's just do the ERP system, being S4 in this example. Let's do the financial portion. Let's turn on the minimal requirements needed maybe to support the supply chain, ordering direct materials, paying for those, and that's about it. But if you need IBP or if you need EWM or some of those solution sets, don't wait till phase 2. Right? That's really my biggest advice because you see a lot of companies do that. Could be for the, like I said, change management, could be monetary purposes. There's always a good reason for it. But I think the benefits you get from doing that up front while you're already going through an ERP transformation, while you have the business stakeholders' time, attention, dedication to the project, it just gives you so much more value up front to where you're now doing something down the road. Maybe you end up not doing it at all because you can live with what you implemented already, and you're just not gaining the benefits of what SAP can offer from a full solution set.
I'm hearing what you're saying is start with the end in mind. And, this transformation is a great opportunity to implement the full suite of SAP's offering, specifically in digital supply chain, and really enhance the value to the end customer. like you did at Shutterfly, right? One important question is to understand about your practice at Cognitus, and when customers are thinking of this journey, what is the great value from experience and your team's perspective that customers can expect from Cognitus?
Yeah, so kind of what I alluded to earlier a little bit is, within Cognitus, and one of our biggest differentiators is bringing the S4 journey together with the digital supply chain. So not certainly we can do an IBP implementation on its own. We've done that multiple times. That's a successful journey. Also, maybe you're already on S4, maybe you are somebody who is sitting on ECC, but forward thinking, you're not necessarily ready to take the full leap of transforming your entire ERP from ECC or whatever legacy system that is into S4, and that's perfectly fine. You can run IBP or EWM or any of those solutions as a standalone, meaning that it could be a sidecar approach, or it could be something where you're just running IBP as a tool, and then you implement or you integrate that with, maybe even it's a different company like NetSuite or something like that. That is possible to do, so that you can get yourself the larger foundation before you move to S4. But like I said, we really bring that entire intelligent enterprise together, unlike most consulting companies that you'll see. And to expand on that a little bit too, we always bring our own flavor. So if you think, and what I mean by that is we have very deep industry experience in certain industries. Aerospace and defense comes to mind all the time because we have so much traction in that industry right now. We do a lot within the planning module, even within the core. So if you think, logistics execution and outbound on the sales side, and logistics like LE on the OTC side, and PMMO, there's a lot of things in there that, aren't necessarily under the digital supply chain, but they're all supply chain related. And that's where we bring that unique experience. And it's very industry focused. We don't go into industries that we don't know. We want to be confident and bring that unique flavor. So for example, on the aerospace and defense side, there's a lot of government requirements, and that's really where our sweet spot is. Within IBP, we can bring those customer contracts in, some of those different fields that we know are industry standards, and we already have those solution sets built and ready to go. It's not that you have to repeat all of these customizations and developments and things of that nature. We understand the business, we understand the industry. We try to tell you what you should do before you even tell us what you need, right? We try to have that need in mind before you tell us what that is, right? We've done those implementations. We have a lot of folks that, like I mentioned before, come from those businesses, come from those industries, understand the difficulties in-house because they were already working for, like a Lockheed Martin or something of that nature, and they bring that experience to Cognitus. And that's where we are confident in our solution sets, implementation strategies, industries, etc.
That's fantastic, Jeff. So what we essentially learned is industry best practices come out of your offerings, and that's the key benefit that customers can expect from engaging with you and your team. So we're talking about key benefits, be it on the demand side, supply side, or operations side. Could you highlight some specific numbers or give some KPIs that customers or audience here listening to this podcast can take away and then, reach out to you? So what might be those KPIs that they should think about?
Yeah, so, with actual numbers, I can give something from Shutterfly, for example. That was one of our latest implementations where we did a lot of different solution sets and tried to help them with different difficulties across our organization. So one thing that is very specific to like a retail company, they go through a lot of peak seasons and different things. So they process around 25 to 27 million orders a year. So you have to be, while SAP can be a very rigid system, we had to make it flexible, right? So what we focused on a lot was their stockouts. And they turn over so much inventory with very minimal inventory in-house. They do have some 3PLs, but most of that inventory is in-house, and it's very low. So the turnover is fast, inventory levels are low, and stockouts have to be extremely minimal if you're rolling 4 million, 5 million orders a month. So that can be a large challenge. So one thing with IBP in conjunction with Ariba SCC to give that live collaboration with the suppliers while giving you a robust planning tool, we were challenged with reducing their stockouts. A lot of that was in the past manually done in Excel sheets. A lot of human labor and intervention went into that. So I think it was around 7 to 8% the stockouts that we had reduced for them, which is a significant amount. Like I said, when you think about what 8% measures to with line items and 25 plus million orders a year, that had a significant impact on their supply chain.
Jeff, thank you. That was fantastic. So in a nutshell, in these times when disruptions in supply chain is the new norm, Cognitus and your team here in the digital supply chain practice has a solution. And I'm quite sure our audience here who listen to it would be inspired to reach out to you, and they could get in touch with you at sales@cognitus.com. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, Jeff Olsen, the person to know here at Cognitus, and we look forward to meeting you again with another great person and another great offering to talk about from Cognitus. Thank you very much and hope you have a wonderful day.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.